And moving on to our very first panel discussion, themed as leveraging and optimizing on high performance hybrid cloud services. It indeed is an honor for me to introduce our well-renowned panelists, starting off with Mr. Khalid S. Salim. He is the Vice President and Head of Technology at Tamam. Then we have Mr. Muhammad Ali Shalan. He is the Head of Technology, Aquarat Real Estate Development Company, and also the Director for Digital Transformation at Project Management Institute, Saudi Chapter. Then we have Mr. Hisham Saad Al-Ghamri, who is the Group Data and Analytics Officer at Abdul Latif Jamil. Then we have Mr. James Allerton Austin. He is the Senior Director of Cloud Strategy EMEA at Oracle. And at last, we have our eminent panel moderator, Dr. Dua About. She is the IT Governance Director and AI Advisor at Eastern Province Municipality of KSA. Without any further delay, over to you, dear Dr. Dua About, to moderate the panel for the next 30 minutes.
Okay, so there you go. We are live now. All right, the stage is yours.
I think it's changing the role of technology and also changed by the demand of the business. So before we go deep with the discussion into high-performance hybrid cloud services, I want to ask about the motive behind the interest in digital transformation and cloud computing. So Mr. Hisham, what makes an organization interested in digital transformation and ready for digital strategy, especially cloud computing? Is it more connectivity, it is data insight, or just something else? Could you give us some insight on that?
Okay, Dua, would you like to ask a different panelist a different question? Meanwhile, Hisham fixes the system.
Sure. Is it open for everyone to give insight over this question? Someone in the panel will want to answer this question?
Maybe if you want, if you allow me, I can go with this question actually, because
okay.
it's.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually it's everyone, every company now with the digital transformation is part of the new normal that everyone is looking forward. And you see actually COVID-19 have shown a lot of interest in this and add the interest that was in there. For example, let me answer this question as part of my role as Digital Transformation Director for the non-profit organization, which is Project Management Institute here, the Saudi chapter. And actually, when we start to set up our environment actually and our transformation journey, the cloud itself offered us different opportunities and plenty of opportunities that was not possible to set up without being cloud. For example, when we are talking as a non-profit organization, when we try to acquire a service, we focus on low overhead because actually we don't have a lot of funds so that to run our services. Also, we are looking for sustainability and simplicity because this kind of services are run by volunteers, so who are coming in and out. And of course, we need to have a kind of simple and sustainable solution. The furthermore, actually, is the agility and the flexibility because you have multiple options that you can set up. You can go here and there. So for this, actually, cloud has provided us a very interesting environment that we can build our journey upon. And part of this, for example, we have built the internal email services with our domains. We have put a collaboration mechanism between all the volunteers as well between our stakeholders, universities, guests, students, sponsors. So it was there was a lot of knowledge sharing, for example, based on a lot of services provided in the cloud. And all of this actually cannot happen while we don't have these kind of cloud services. So this was very important, and the issue that the good thing that of our journey that the BMI KSA was able to set up all this environment without a kind of external support. It was run by volunteers, for volunteers and sponsors, and gave a great value. This is actually is not possible without cloud and without all the services that we are coming in cloud. So this is a kind of why everyone is going into cloud and he's seeking a lot of opportunities here and there. So this is just in a nutshell actually an example of how we utilize cloud services to provide value to our stakeholders.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed, for your valued insights. Since we're talking about high-performance, high-cloud services, Mr. James, how do you define high-performance for cloud services? What is the definition of this terminology?
That is a good question, and thank you, Dr. Dua. I think high performance is often seen as something of pure speed, the ability to deploy and then run something very fast. But performance to us is much more than that. Of course, it is speed. It is also predictability. The idea that when I know that I will run this, that I know that it will take around this time to complete. So there is a quality to performance as well as just outright speed. And to an extent, that performance is also the performance of the business that results from using those services. It is and can be many times that a workload will be placed onto a cloud and the performance is very, very good, but the performance of the business or the benefit for the business is much lower because they are spending more time working on the qualities that they need in terms of the business performance. So for us, performance is really three things. One is around absolute performance. Two is around the predictability of that performance. And number three is around the set of services that allows the business to take the maximum possible benefit from the cloud that they uptake and improve business performance as a result.
Interesting. And to continue with this discussion, what are the top items you see as requiring optimization in cloud for customer to get the best out of the cloud services?
Okay. I see a few things. Typically, when we think about cloud, we often think about infrastructure. And so when we look across many clouds, and more customers are using more than one cloud for good reason, for risk, for performance, for the right workloads. I think what we see as some of the key elements to define that performance or define the ability to take that performance from the cloud is around the ability for that cloud to deliver the service that you need where you need it, to take away the need for a compromise. You know, I would like to do this, but I can't because it's in the cloud, and therefore I have to do this instead. So I compromise my business. The other side is your expectation. And I find this with a lot of our customers and with a lot of the companies that I speak to. The expectation today is that those companies will have to take control or take ownership of a lot of the tasks in cloud, much as they do today in their data center. And yet, when we think about cloud as something more than compute, network, and storage, and we start to say, well, how do we define cybersecurity? Is that the responsibility of the customer? Or is it the responsibility of the cloud vendor to be able to put a whole series of tools and steps in place so that that customer can focus on their business and rely upon the security and the cybersecurity tooling? For example, instead of applying security layers and then having to apply governance behind it, which takes up a lot of company resources, is to have something in place automatically that allows those applications to be placed into a space with rules, and where those rules start to break because IT moves, it is like continents, it shifts over time. When we move that it tells us so that we can take action or there can be automatic action behind it. And I think that's the critical part, is providing services not just to do the thing you want, but also to support the things that you really don't want to have to do.
Thank you for this insight. And since you mentioned security, and I'm talking from the governmental or public sector perspective, I think security issues, the cloud was one of the main barriers for the cloud adopting in the public sector. And I don't know if that apply also to the private sector. So I want to ask about this specific area. Mr. Khalid, could you define what is the hybrid cloud security and how does cloud services become a cybersecurity enabler, putting in mind the security and data protection concerns that the organization have usually with the cloud computing?
Thank you, Dua. This is a very good question. So let's first go with the definition of the hybrid cloud service. So the hybrid cloud service is allowing the organization to rent a very costly facility called data center. So instead of owning this kind of facility, the data center, the physical security solution, cooling system, firefighting system, hardware, network, all these, it's a shared responsibility between the cloud service provider and the organization. So the cloud service will support fintech, the startup company, to waive a lot of costly operation costs and capital cost amount. So hybrid cloud is connection between the public and private cloud. So as well, indeed, business can use the hybrid cloud to seamless workflow migration between public and private cloud. It's also offer flexibility and more control than either public or private cloud. The other part of your question, how the cloud service is a cybersecurity enabler. All of us today would like to enjoy and take the fun of the agile module, but there are so many challenges, especially for the fintech, for the startup company to comply, to adopt the security standards such like ISO, PCI, the regulatory policies. So the question and for the challenges is how we can assure the quality and security level of the new provisioning process, how we can implement all the cybersecurity regulations, security measures and controls. There are so many questions, stuff like that. All these standard or for the startup companies are painful and very difficult for them to reach to this maturity levels. However, I'm going to offload all these from myself to from the organization that I'm a member of to the cloud service provider. It is his responsibility to reach me to this maturity levels, to apply, to adopt all these kind of requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hisham, are you fine in terms of technology issues right now?
I hope so.
Okay, can I have the pleasure of asking you one question here? I want to ask you about the responsibilities and the role of the CIOs and IT leaders to provide the agility and flexibility needed to thrive in digital economy. Like, what are the recommendation and strategic planning assumption in terms of optimizing on high-performance hybrid cloud services from their perspective?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Da, and welcome to our fellow panelists and our guests. It's a pleasure to be here today. What matters for the heads of ITs and digital is we need to see two challenges from a technology perspective and also from a business perspective. So from a technology perspective, you look into the hybrid cloud between public and private cloud. These are two bridges that you need to build. So you need to cater for your own team, skill sets, and these are emerging things. So probably you're not going to have very good resources internally. So you need to mobilize resources from external vendors, partners, to help you with this kind of journey. Added to that, of course, security, and as you highlighted, performance. Connecting these two worlds is very critical from technology perspective, and it will take time. So that's from a technical perspective. From business, of course, you need to prioritize. You need to see what is the most critical things. You need to go that supports your customer experience, that allows you to grow, that allows you to be more efficient, to meet compliance. All these, I would call them benefit issues is you need to prioritize. What are the most critical things that you need to focus on? And of course, after the priority, you need to plan for the budget. These initiatives will be extremely costly, and you have to know, based on the priority, what are the number 1 and 2 and 3 that will help you improve the customer experience, ensure security, ensure compliance. All of these things from both technology and business perspective, these are, I think, the mandates on the IT heads and digital as well. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Hisham, for this insight. Very valued insights. And because we're running out of time, I want to conclude this panel discussion with one last question about the future of hybrid cloud. Like from the perspective of your field or organization, what was the impact of COVID-19 on cloud computing and hybrid cloud building in general? And what do you think the future holds in post-COVID-19 world? I need to hear from each one of you your specific experience or specific perspective coming from your personal opinion or from your organization or sector. Mr. Mohammed, can we start with you?
Yes, actually, from my perspective, the COVID-19 just accelerate all the transformation journeys that we are in. Usually, I write an article called "How to Transform Marble Statue in Real Estate and in Smart Cities." Now, actually, this is coming through, and the COVID-19 help us to really transform a lot of our cities and a lot of our services, as well a lot of the people here in the government here in Saudi Arabia. Actually, you find that you can now move the ownership of a land now in an SMS message or via a portal. And that was something that was a dream before some time. So really, COVID-19 have speed up a lot of things. And we are seeing this in the government as well in the private sector. In my field, actually, I see it very obvious in different issues. So yes, it is accelerating too much. And also the one more thing is it adds a lot of trust. Because this kind of trust, it was very, very difficult to inject for the business people how to trust these kind of services. But when they were in the field and they utilized these services, so they accept it, and we built the trust layer, which was very hard to build. Okay.
Thank you very much. Mr. James, can I hear from you?
Certainly. I echo what Mr. Mohammed said. It certainly accelerated everything. I guess what it also did that I see is because it accelerated so much, I think we are now at a point where the companies that have adopted cloud are now at a point where they need to start looking at what they have done to understand what the impact of that is, because there were some decisions that were forced for us to make, and now we have to go back and make sure they were the right ones. Because sometimes we look back and think, yes, that was the quick and easy way of doing it, but was it the right way today, now that we are coming to a whole new normal? So I think that's what I see at the moment. Yes, it was absolutely accelerated, but there are more questions to ask about how I can optimize what I'm doing based on these fundamental changes.
So you think that the pandemic was a blessing to cloud computing?
A double-edged sword. A blessing because it drove us very quickly, but sometimes we made a jump across into cloud computing, but perhaps for the wrong reasons. And so it may be that it comes back and cuts some of us quite badly afterwards, and we need to make slightly different decisions. So yeah, good and not so good.
Totally agree. Mr. Khalid, can I hear your insight on that question?
Yes, I believe before and after COVID-19 period, there is a very huge change between the pandemic period. It allowed us to practice the digital transformation. So there was in the table before the COVID-19 period a lot of the files that need some executor, some event to push them to be in the real life. So we practice it, we feel it, and we see the benefit of this one.
Dr. Dua, due to time constraint, I would request you to please give your final notes, and we are running behind the time.
Sure. But I wanna hear from Mr. Hisham if we have any final insight over this question, leaving the
Yes,
best for last.
Yes, thank you. I think we had some technical issues at the beginning that took some of the time. Adding to all my colleagues over here, I think today we are highly connected. We tested many things extremely well in being connected virtually. We still have challenges. We could see something as an example today. So these are probably things that are fueling the digitalization today. It's more necessity than something good or something that offers a great customer experience. The challenges that we could see with the pandemic, like payless devices, sensors, modification to the example Saudi Arabia, the health app for COVID-19. These are the things that extremely accelerated with digitalization, and we expect this trend to continue. It's something that I would say, yes, a good blessing to boost the budget for digitalization, but again, we need to use them wisely and prioritize things as highlighted earlier. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hussein. And I conclude this very insightful panel discussion with Mr. Hisham. So I leave the mic for you, Pedro.
Thank you so much, Dua. Thank you so much, Khalid, Hisham, James, and all the dear participants for bearing with us. And thank you so much for such an insightful session. You wonderfully led the session, Dr. Dua, and appreciate your assistance and coordination here with us. Thank you.
Thank you.